So good evening, friends. We'll start with philosophy session. We're discussing regarding the fifth lecture from Kant's philosophy. And in last lecture, we have discussed few aspects regarding the discrimination between the types of diseases, where the cause is external and when the cause is internal. If we are able to discriminate this, then it is quite possible to approach whether it requires the homeopathic remedy or whether to just, if there is any exciting cause or some maintaining cause, just remove that cause and patient will be settled. So it depends and on the discrimination, and that's why Kent says that discrimination plays a very vital role in order to find it out exact scope of homeopathy. And if you are able to find it out exactly where there is a scope of homeopathy, then you can utilize the homeopathy properly. So this is what we have learned, and then he turned towards the again with the fifth aphorism, and he has explained the fifth aphorism from the organ of medicine, where two important things are mentioned by animal. First variety, exciting cause, specifically when the disease is acute, and fundamental cause when the disease is chronic. These are two things which he has mentioned over there. And how to investigate that fundamental cause, the seven different points which he has highlighted over there by Hahnemann. The first one is the ascertainable physical constitution of the patient. The second important thing is moral and intellectual character. The third important thing is that his occupation. The fourth is mode of living and habits, his social and domestic relations, his age, and his sexual functions. These are seven points which are necessary in order to find it out exactly the remedy of the patient. Because many times in chronics, you never get a characteristic symptoms. And then we have to ultimately treat that human being. And these are the seven points on the basis of which it is quite easy to judge the individuality and match it with the homeopathic remedy. So these are seven points which are necessary to investigate the fundamental cause. So we have discussed this aphorism. Let us go ahead with the commentary by J.T. Kent on this specific aphorism. So he starts, little is known of the real exciting causes. Acute affections are divided into two classes. Number one, those that are miasmatic, which are true diseases, and number two, those that may be called mimicking sickness. So there are two varieties of acute exciting causes. One where the cause is internal, and another where cause is external. Looks like an internal cause. So he differentiates these exciting causes into two types. What exactly he want to say? Just see the latter means those which are mimicking sickness, similar to the sickness. Mimicking is imitation. The latter have no definite cause, are produced by the external causes such as living in damp houses, the grief, the bad clothing, etc. And the causes being removed, the patient recovers. So these types of causes, you if they are removed, the patient again attains the health. He never remains in the state of disease because it was just looking like a sickness, but it is not an actual sickness. A person who is coughing again and again, and he was continuously smoking, the smoking becomes an acute cause or exciting cause for the cough. If you remove the smoking from his life, there will be no more cough. So patient recovers at that level. Same is true when patient is having a recurrent mouth ulcer and he's taking the tobacco. If you remove the tobacco from his diet, patient will be recovered. So such types of causes, such types of diseases which looks like a mimicking sickness are present in those patients. But the first, the acute miasms have distinct course to run. So first variety where the cause is internal, they are having very typical presentation. They are caused because of acute miasms. And what exactly it produces? Then he explains, they have a prodromal period, then the period of progress and the period of decline. So there is a period of prodrome, then period of progress, and then it comes out. This is the way with which the acute disorders caused because of acute miasms runs. So this is very important. They have the prodromal period, a period of progress and period of decline, if not so severe as to cause the patient's death. Measles, scarlet fever, whooping cough, smallpox, etc. are examples of acute miasms. So he is giving you examples of all those acute miasms, and acute, these are the disorders which are all contagious diseases. The physician must also be acquainted with the chronic miasms, the sora, syphilis, and psychosis, which we will study later. So he explains over there, physician should also learn about the chronic miasms, but that we'll study later. They have, like the acute, a period of a prodromal period and period of progress, but unlike the acute, they have no period of decline. So this is the difference between acute and chronics. In acute miasm, there is period of prodrome, progress and decline, where in case of chronic, it is only period of prodrome and followed by progress until at a late the organism is destroyed. This is the difference. Chronics always leads towards the destruction of human being. Acutes are not. They are self-recoverable. And that's why there is always a period of decline is present in acutes. When when the times and circumstances are favorable, the chronic miasms become quiescent. But adverse times rouse it into activity, and each time it is aroused, the condition is worse than as it was at the previous exacerbation. Chronics, what happens? Sometimes it starts, it has a period of prodrome, then it starts and continues. Sometimes there will be a little bit relief, patient feels he is better, and because the times and circumstances are good, the patient is in the state of relative health and he's happy. But when again some exciting cause happens, then the original disease comes out and it is more aggravated than previous condition. This is the condition which happens in chronics. In this paragraph, Hahnemann teaches that chronic miasms are the fundamental cause of acute miasms, which is to say, if there were no chronic miasms, there would be no acute. So what Hahnemann wants to explain, the fundamental cause is the basic reason because of which acute exacerbation of the chronic miasms comes out. Some exciting cause is needed and the person who is in quiescent state comes out in the form of an acute disease. The chronic miasms are needed in order to develop the acute diseases. If there is no miasm, there will be no disease. So the sentence which he mentions over there has a value. Hahnemann teaches that the chronic miasms are the fundamental cause of the acute miasms, which is to say, if there were no chronic miasms, there would be no acute. It is in the very nature of chronic miasm to predispose man to the acute diseases, and the acute diseases are the fuel added to an unquenchable fire. So whenever during a chronic disease, if acute disease develops, that aggravates the chronic state. Acute diseases then exist from specific causes cooperating with the susceptibility. We do not recognize measles or scarlet fever except in sick people. Their influence might exist in the atmosphere, but we cannot see it. So apart from the subjects that take and develop them, we could not know that there were such diseases. If there were no children on the earth susceptible to the measles, we would have no measles. And if there were no chronic miasms, there would be no susceptibility. We will take up the subject of susceptibility later. So see the concepts of Kent. They're very clear. Very clear. He explains over there, if chronic miasms were not present, there would not have been the acute disease. And this is true. The chronic miasm is present because of some exciting cause that gets stimulated, which was in latent phase, arouses and develops an acute disease. If chronic miasm was not there, there would not be in this acute disease. So this is first important thing which he explains. At the same time, one more point which he explains over there, if there would not have been any chronic miasm, there would not have any susceptibility. The patient has the susceptibility because he has the chronic miasms in him. So the concepts were very clear with the kids, and that's why he has explained everything in detail in his philosophy. Sora is the cause of all contagion. Sentence underline, very important. Sora is the cause of all contagion. If man had not had Sora, he would not have had other two chronic miasms. But the Sora, the oldest, become the basis of all of the others. So Sora is the fundamental cause. Sora is the original miasm. Sora is that's why Sora is called as the mother of all miasms. It was there because of which rest of two entered inside the human being. The syphilis comes into the human being because Sora was there. Syphilis, gonorrhea entered inside the human being, caused the psychosis because Sora was there. Actually, if you consider all three miasms, the Sora, where the primary manifestation of Sora is itch, or which is called to be a scabies, caused because of infective focus, considered the mite, that is the Sarcoptes scabies. The psychosis is caused because of suppressed gonorrhea. Gonorrhea, again infective organism, is Neisseria gonorrhoeae. The syphilis caused because of suppressed syphilis. Syphilis is caused because of again infective bacteria, Treponema pallidum. So ultimately, all three miasms are the product of infective focus, which gets suppressed at the primary level and because of which further miasm develop. But if you understand the history of all those three, the Sora was there right from the birth of the human being. Rest of them, the gonorrhea and the syphilis, were not there. There was only Sora with the earlier peoples. But because of the perverted Sora, these organisms, that is Neisseria gonorrhoeae and Treponema pallidum, which were the organisms of animal origin, entered inside the human being and caused their own miasms over there. And that's why Sora is called to be a mother of all miasms, or it is called to be a fundamental miasm or fundamental cause. The physician of the present day do not comprehend Hahnemann's definition of Sora. They think it meant an itch vesicle or some sort of tetter. They regard itch as only the result of action of bug that crawls on in the skin, making vesicles, all of which is external. This is quite in keeping with the man's present form of investigation, because he can comprehend only that which he discovers by his senses. The concept, when we think about the Sora, there is a little bit confusion. Hahnemann's concept was that the suppressed itch leads towards the new manifestations, new internal diseases to which Hahnemann labeled by the name of Sora. But why this itch was there? Itch was caused because of the Sarcoptes scabies. This is modern science day. During Hahnemannian time, he used to label that itch to that vesicular eruption. That vesicular eruption, which is a big entity at that time, that was very predominantly present on the earth, and that when gets suppressed leads to the internal new diseases. Hahnemannian concept of understanding miasm was rather different. It was not only this much eruptions, more than that, but Hahnemann was not there to explain all those things, and because of which Kent has studied it in a more detailed manner. And when Kent has studied the miasm, he explained that it was not because of just a family history or past history of the patient where suppressed itch was there. If you go back, we reach to the first human being on this earth, and there was also a sorrow present. Then question arises. Quent puts over there two theories. If you consider it is because of suppressed itch in either in the past or family history of the patient, if first man was there, from where it came? Either you have to believe that God has the syphilis, God has the itch, or second important thing, it is not only itch which is called to be a Sora. And Kent was very clear with his thoughts. And then Kent said, It is not just a suppressed itch which is responsible to produce a sora. It is more than that. And then he explains sora is related with the will and understanding of the human being, which ultimately developed the ego inside the human being. And that is what is the sora. So concept of so understanding of miasm of the Kent is rather different than the Hahnemannian concept of understanding the miasm. And once you understand this clearly, then you think with a different view towards the miasm. And this is what Kent is saying, that this is the quite in keeping with the man's present form of investigation, because he can comprehend only that which he discovers by his senses. Hahnemann's idea of Sora, as we shall see when we come to study it, it is wholly different from the perverted views. Sora corresponds to that state of man in which he has so disordered his economy to the very uttermost that he has become susceptible to every surrounding influence. The other day, I used the illustration of civil government and said, if our civil government is evil in its center, it will be it will be in disorder in its outermost. So if man is a will in his very interiors, that is in his will and understanding, and the result of this a will flows into his life, he is in a state of disorder. Let man exist for thousands of years thinking of false theories and bringing them into his life, and his life will become one of the disorder. So this is Kant's understanding of the soul. What Kant said, it is not just a suppressed eruption. It was not just a each, which is the Sura. If you go into the understanding of human being, there is a lot of things which you have to study. If you reach toward the man's history, you will find the man was born with will and understanding. As he was born with the will and understanding, and because of which he reached to the present state. He reached to the two-day state only because he has will and understanding, and that will and understanding gave Hahnemann, so gave the human being a different identity. The ego was boosted up because of this, and this ego reflected ultimately in the Soric Maya. So the concept of Sora is absolutely different from Kantian point of view than the Hahnemannian point of view. Hahnemann was not able to elaborate this because he had very little time. It was very little time he had, and because of which it was not possible for Hahnemann to explain all those things. He came to the consideration of miasms in the year of 1828 when he published the chronic miasms or chronic diseases. So it was latter phase of Hahnemann's life, and that's why he was not able to explain all those things which Kent has elaborated in detail. So Kentian concept of understanding the miasm, it is the will and understanding which is evil, responsible to produce a disorder in the human being. That evil mind is the basic Sora, and if you understand that Sora, then you will understand the whole human being. So concept is very clear with him. This is what he says. Later, we will be able to show that this disordered condition of economy is the underlying and fundamental state of the nature of Sora, which ultimates upon the body in tissue changes. Suppose a man starts out and believes that it is right for him to live upon the certain kind of food that is very distasteful to him. He lies upon that diet until he thinks from his belief that he really loves it. And in time, his very outermost becomes as morbid as he is himself. When man is insane in his interior, it is only a question of time and his body will take on the results of insanity because the interior of man forms the exterior. See, very clear about the concept. What he says over there, if we'll take into consideration the human being, if we'll able to consider the disordered human being, the disorder starts at the center, at the level of will emotions or will and understanding. If you advise or if you give him a food and which is not at all tasty, he starts consuming that for the sake of his appetite. He starts consuming. Later on, he starts liking that. But as time permits, if it is feasible, digested, it's okay. But if it is not digested, and the person becomes insane internally because of that food, that food itself, which has caused the insanity at the center, reflected ultimately in the form of some signs and symptoms, which is the result of, which is called to be a disease. So the way he explains. So when a man is insane in his interior, see what he says. When a man who is insane in his interior, it is only a question of time and his body will take on the results of insanity because the interior of man forms the exterior. If the interior is insane, the exterior is disordered or distorted and is only suitable to the kind of insane or disordered life that dwells in it. Falls in the interior, falls in the exterior, so that the body becomes as it were false. And this is speaking from analogy, but you will come to see that it is actually true. So whatever is true for the internal part is true for the exterior. If you are wrong at the center, it will reflect it in the periphery. And this is the truth. If there is a wrong with the dynamics of the human beings, they will reflect in the form of disorder state of the human being. Every disease develops in this manner. Every true dynamic disease develops in this manner. It never comes from outside and enters inside the human being. It comes from inside and expresses outside. Once the concept is clear, then you will not treat the just a periphery. Then you will treat the center with the help of peripheral symptoms. You take into consideration the totality of the symptom, match that with the help of law of similars, and find it out a right simillimum, and then you prescribe that remedy to that patient. That is the right way of prescribing, and that remedy works at the center, not at the periphery. And this is very clear understanding of homeopathy. So, see the concept which he tries to explain, and in the very simple language he tries to explain. We'll finish one more paragraph in today's session and then we'll stop. Each and everything that appears before the eyes is but the representative of its cause. There is no cause except in the interior. Cause does not flow from outermost of the man to the interior because man is protected against such state of affairs. Causes exist in the such subtle form that they cannot be seen by eyes. There is no disease that exists of which cause is known to the man by the eye, by the microscope. What he says? There is no cause of the disease which is visible through your naked eye or with the microscope. Because that is dynamic, that happens internally, that is there inside at the level of dynamic vital force, dynamic energy, dynamic principle. You are not able to watch that. So no human being, no physician can find it out a real cause of disease because it is hidden in the interior, in the dynamic form. Question arises, what is this dynamic, dynamic, dynamic? It is so simple that you are doing well, everything is going on fine, and there is some dispute or quarrel happens to be there with your friend. What happens? Where do you get disturbed? There is no real fight. It was just a fight between your thoughts, and you get disturbed. Where do you get disturbed? Can you imagine? Can you show? Can you find it out? You cannot, because it reflected in the interior, and that's why you are diseased. Your face is disturbed. You are not interested in anything. You get angry. You get anxious. All those things happens in your life, but you cannot find where is the fault because it happens in the hidden interior. Real causes of all disorders are always hidden in such at such level, and if you want to treat them, you have to treat this center with the help of expressive totality. There is no disease that exists of which the cause is known to man by the eye or by the microscope. Causes are infinitely too fine to be observed by any instrument of the precision. They are so immaterial that they correspond to and operate upon the interior nature of the man, and they are ultimated in the body in the form of tissue changes that are recognized by eye. So whatever the disease happens inside, which is invisible, but it reflects on the cells, on the tissues, and that is visible. That you can find it out. Those symptoms you can find it out. Those changes you can find it out. Such tissue changes must be understood as the results of disease only, or the physician will never perceive what disease causes, what disease is, what potentization is, and what nature of life is. This is what Hahnemann means when he speaks of fundamental causes and existing in chronic miasm. So there are many things which exist in fundamental cause. There are many things. It depends upon your nature. It depends upon your hidden miasm. It depends upon your constitution. It depends upon your susceptibility. Many factors comes together, and all those factors reflects in the form of reaction, and those reactions are individualistic. So something happens in your life and you react. Sometimes something happens that produces the trauma inside, which you cannot show, but it reflected over there. And that reflection, which is in the form of some signs and symptoms, is the result of it. Origin is inside, which is not visualized. But what you visualize with your eye is the exterior. And that's what the real disease is. That's what the fundamental cause of the disease is. And that is only because fundamental cause was present, that's why acute exacerbation was there. If it would have not been there, there would not have been any acute exacerbation. So Hahnemann's concept in understanding this miasm, this aphorism is that because of the fundamental cause, because of the exciting cause, the acute diseases comes out. Fundamental causes are present in those human beings because of which the acute exacerbation exists. So we'll stop over here and we'll continue with this session tomorrow. Most probably we can finish this chapter tomorrow or day after tomorrow. But this is a big chapter where he has made the concepts clear regarding the diseases, what exactly mean by acute diseases and what are exactly mean by the chronic diseases. What are two varieties of exciting causes, as just as an external causes or just because of internal causes. All those things he has taken into consideration while explaining this aphorism, and this is the philosophy of the homeopathy which he tried to explain. So that's all for today. Tomorrow we'll continue with it. Today evening there will be session sharp at 8:30, and from today onwards it will be at 8:30, not 9:30. So today's session, we're going to learn one more remedy from the rheumatism, the natrum sulfuricum, and closely related with this weather. So today at sharp 8:30, be there and ask your friends to join this Matria Medica session also, so we can learn practical clinical Matria Medica. Any queries are there, we can discuss, or otherwise we conclude.
हॅलो सर.
Yes.
सर मला प्रश्न असा आहे सर, एक डिप्रेशनची केस आहे आणि ती केस घेताना वारंवार पेशंटच्या तोंडातून एकच वाक्य येत आहे की मी माणसं कशी काय ओळखू शकले नाही. म्हणजे काही विचारलं की मला याचंच वाईट वाटतंय की मी माणसं कसं काय ओळखू शकले नाही. 10 वर्षापूर्वीची ब्रेकअपची केस आहे, म्हणजे आताही पेशंट डिप्रेशन मध्ये आहे. तर सर मी हे रुब्रिक म्हणून कसं घेऊ?
The two things important. If it is 10 years back happened, dwells on past disagreeable events. That is first thing. Second important thing, she never blames others. She blames herself. Delusion wrong she has done. She was reproaching herself. That is third important thing. She reproaches herself. That is third important thing. मी माणसं कसं ओळखू शकले नाही. शी इज ब्लेमिंग हरसेल्फ. शी इज नॉट ब्लेमिंग others. So dwells on
हम्म.
past disagreeable occurrences, reproaches herself, and third, delusion wrong she has done. These are three important things which you can take on these
ओके
sentences.
सर.
Whatever. Okay.
येस सर, येस. ओके सर, थँक्यू.
So we'll conclude today's session. We'll meet sharp at 8:30 with the natrum sulphate. That's all for today.